yourself for lies.
The phone call came while I was unloading the dishwasher, the low hum of the machine filling the kitchen like background static. I had one earbud in, half listening to a podcast I'd already tuned out, when my phone vibrated against the counter. "Hey," my wife said. Her voice was light, too light, the way it got when she was trying to sound casual about something that wasn't. "Just a reminder, we're going to my parents' place tonight, my cousin's engagement dinner." I slid a plate into the cabinet, careful not to let it clink. The word engagement hung there longer than it should have. "And please don't, you know." My hands stopped midair, fingers still wrapped around the edge of a bowl. I stared at the inside of the cabinet, at the neatly stacked dishes we'd bought together years ago, back when conversations like this didn't need prefaces. "Don't what?" I asked, even though I already knew. There was a pause on the line, not silence exactly, just breathing. The kind people do when they're choosing words that won't start a fight, but already know they're going to anyway. "Don't interrogate him," she said finally. "Don't make it awkward. Ryan's really proud of himself right now." Ryan. Of course it was Ryan. I closed the cabinet door and leaned back against the counter, letting the dishwasher finish its cycle without me. Ryan was always proud of himself. Proud of whatever title he was using this month, whatever story he'd polished just enough to sound impressive without being specific. "I'm not in the habit of interrogating people at dinner," I said, keeping my tone even. "I know," she replied quickly, too quickly. "That's not what I mean. You just have this way of asking questions." There it was. Not an accusation, not a request, a reputation. I smiled to myself, staring at the faint coffee stain on the countertop we'd never quite managed to scrub out. Not because it was funny, because it was familiar. Because I'd heard some version of this speech before every family gathering that involved someone new, someone important, someone she didn't want scrutinized. They're just questions, normal ones. They don't feel normal when you ask them. They feel like cross-examinations. I pictured Ryan at the dinner table already, leaning back in his chair, talking loud enough for everyone to hear, soaking in admiration like sunlight. I pictured myself saying nothing, smiling politely, swallowing whatever small comment came my way. "I'll behave," I said after a moment. There was a soft exhale on the other end, relief, immediate and unhidden. "Thank you," she said, and the way she said it, warm, grateful, made something tighten in my chest. She thanked me like I'd just agreed to do her a favor, like I'd promised restraint instead of simply promised to exist quietly. When the phone call ended, the kitchen felt too quiet. The dishwasher clicked as it finished its cycle. I stood there for a second longer than necessary, then opened it again and reached for the last dish, already feeling like I'd agreed to something I didn't remember negotiating. Ryan was always the promising one. The cousin who moved fast, talked big, and failed upward with remarkable consistency. Every family gathering came with a new title: consultant, strategist, partner in waiting. Nobody ever quite knew what he did, but everyone knew he was doing very well. We arrived late, on purpose. Parking was already a nightmare. Inside, the house buzzed with celebration. Champagne flutes, laughter, a banner stretched across the dining room that read "Engaged" in glittery gold letters. Ryan stood near the fireplace, arm draped loosely around his fiancée, basking. "Look who finally made it," he said when he saw us, the corporate watchdog himself. I laughed politely. My wife stiffened beside me. "Congrats," I said, extending a hand. Ryan's grip was aggressive, testing. He leaned in slightly. "Still crunching spreadsheets for a living?" he asked, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "I work in risk assessment, so yes, numbers still pay my bills." "Oh," he said, smiling, like I'd just confessed to a hobby. "Someone's got to keep the lights on." My wife squeezed my arm, hard. Dinner was worse. Ryan held court from the center of the table, regaling everyone with stories about his firm, his investors, his upcoming expansion overseas. His parents beamed. My wife's mother nodded approvingly at every sentence. "Some people just have the instinct," Ryan said, swirling his wine. "Leadership, vision. You either have it or you don't." His eyes flicked to me. "Others are more supportive types, important in their own way." The table chuckled uncomfortably. My wife leaned over, whispered, "Please, not tonight." So I didn't say anything. Not yet. Dessert arrived. Ryan stood to toast. "To taking risks," he said, "to betting on yourself, and to never letting fear keep you small." Applause erupted. That was when his fiancée squeezed his hand and said, "Tell them about the merger." Ryan froze, just for a heartbeat. Yeah," he said, recovering. "Right, the merger." I looked up. It was a merger he definitely wasn't involved in, one I'd personally reviewed last quarter. Interesting. "Which division is that under?" I asked, mildly. Ryan's smile tightened. "Corporate development." "Ah," I said. "That explains it." My wife shot me a warning look. Ryan tilted his head. "You familiar with it?" "Intimately." Silence crept in around the table. Ryan laughed too loudly. "Small world, huh?" "Very," I agreed, "especially when you've been auditing the same firm for 6 years." His fiancée frowned. "Auditing?" I took a slow sip of water. "Yes, I oversee external risk compliance for your company's parent group." Ryan's fork clattered onto his plate. "You're joking," someone said. "I wish I were." Ryan's face drained of color. "That merger," I continued calmly, "was suspended pending investigation. Accounting discrepancies, unreported liabilities." My wife's hand flew to her mouth. "You told everyone it was finalized?" his fiancée whispered. Ryan stood abruptly. "This isn't appropriate." "You're right. It would have been better if you had told the truth earlier." His mother stood up. "How dare you ruin this night?" "I didn't. I just stopped lying from continuing." Ryan grabbed his jacket. "We're leaving," he snapped to his fiancée. She didn't move. The drive home was silent until my wife exploded. "What were you thinking?" "I was thinking he shouldn't build a marriage on fraud." "You humiliated him." "He humiliated himself." "That was my family. You embarrassed me." I pulled over. "No," I said quietly. "I embarrassed him. You're upset because I didn't let it slide." "You never let things slide. You always need to be right." I looked at her. "Name one time you've defended me when they belittled what I do." She averted my gaze. There was nothing to say, because there was nothing to say, and she knew it. That night, she slept upstairs. I slept on the couch. The next morning, her phone buzzed constantly, mine too. Messages accusing me of jealousy, of arrogance, of ruining happiness. One message stood out. I don't know how she got my number, but it was from Ryan's fiancée. "Thank you for telling the truth. I found things on my own this morning. I'm leaving." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. 2 days later, my wife sat across from me at the kitchen table, hands folded around a mug she hadn't touched. Morning light filtered through the blinds, striping the table between us like a line neither of us was crossing. She didn't ease into it. No small talk, no checking in. "I think you should apologize," she said. The words landed softly, but they carried the weight of a decision already made. "For what?" I asked. "For how you handled it." Her tone was calm, measured, reasonable, like this was a simple misunderstanding, not the culmination of something that had been breaking for years. I nodded slowly, more to give myself time than because I agreed. I watched the steam finally disappear from her mug, leaving a dull, dark surface behind. "Okay," I said, "and will they apologize to me?" She frowned slightly, like she hadn't considered that part. "For the comments," I continued. "For the jokes. For the way they talk about my work like it's something temporary or lesser. For the way Ryan spoke to me all night and no one said a word." Her fingers tightened around the mug. "For the years of dismissing me," I said quietly. "For treating me like I'm tolerated instead of welcomed." She shifted in her chair. Her eyes drifted to the window, to the neighbor's fence, to anywhere but my face. "They didn't mean it that way," she said after a moment. "They're just like that." I let out a slow breath. "So am I said. "I'm just like this. I ask questions, I notice things. I don't lie to make people comfortable." She swallowed. "This isn't the same." "Isn't it?" I leaned back, the chair creaking softly. "Because what I hear is that they're allowed to be themselves and I'm supposed to be quieter." She didn't answer. I waited. Long enough for her to look back at me if she was going to. Long enough for the house to settle around us. "And will they apologize to me?" I asked again, not accusing, just asking. She looked away, down at the table this time. Her thumb traced the rim of the mug in a small, nervous circle. "I don't think that would help anything," she said. That was my answer. Not the words themselves, but the ease with which she said them, the certainty that my hurt was inconvenient while theirs needed to be managed. I nodded once, stood up, and carried my mug to the sink. The clink of porcelain against metal sounded louder than it should have. Behind me, she stayed seated, still holding her coffee, still not drinking it. The conversation was over. I didn't say anything after that. There was nothing left to say. I rinsed my mug, set it in the rack, and went upstairs to shower. When I came back down, she was still at the table, scrolling on her phone, her coffee untouched. She didn't look up when I grabbed my keys. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Out," I said. She nodded, like that was acceptable, like distance was a solution. The shift didn't happen all at once. It never does. At first, it was small things. Her phone face down on the counter when it used to sit screen up. Texts answered with a half smile she didn't explain. A sudden interest in staying late at work, dinners with co-workers, weekends, helping her mom. Then came the name. "Ethan is funny," she said one night, laughing at something on her phone. "You'd like him." I didn't ask who Ethan was. I already knew. "He's in real estate," she added, like that explained something. "Very confident." Of course he was. The next family dinner invitation came about a month later. She didn't ask if I wanted to go, she just told me. "And Ethan will be there too," she said casually, as she adjusted her hair in the mirror. "He's helping my parents look at some investment properties." I looked up from the couch. Ethan, the coworker. She hesitated, barely. "He's a friend. Don't start." I smiled, not because I was amused, because I was tired. The dinner felt different the moment we walked in. Ethan was already there, leaning against the kitchen counter like he belonged. Tall, relaxed. His hand graced my wife's back as he laughed at something her mother said. No one introduced him to me. I introduced myself. He shook my hand with practiced ease. "I've heard a lot about you." I believed him. None of it good. Throughout the night, he sat right next to her. She was in between both of us. Their knees touched. She didn't move away. When he spoke, her parents leaned in. When I spoke, conversations drifted. At one point, her mother smiled at Ethan and said, "It's nice to have someone around who understands ambition." Her father nodded. Drive, vision. I watched my wife's face as they said it. She didn't correct them. She didn't look uncomfortable. She looked relieved. After dessert, Ethan stood to leave. "I'll walk you out," my wife said quickly. They were gone longer than necessary. When she came back, her cheeks were flushed. Her mother gave her a knowing look, the kind shared between women who think they're helping. I stood up. "I'm heading out," I said. My wife blinked. Already? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Yes. No one tried to stop me. She didn't come with me. That night, I slept in the guest room. 2 nights later, I packed a bag. I'm not apologizing, I told her, and I'm not staying where I'm being replaced in plain sight. She crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. Maybe, I said, but I'm not blind. She didn't deny it. Not really. I filed for divorce the following Monday. That's when the fight started. She wasn't angry because I was leaving. She was angry because I was leaving on my terms, without begging, without negotiating my dignity down to something more palatable for her family. Her parents hired a lawyer before she even did, a sharp, expensive one, the kind who spoke in polished accusations and smiled while doing it. Their opening position was aggressive, abandonment, emotional instability, punitive intent. They painted me as volatile, vindictive, a man acting out because his ego had been bruised. Ethan, according to them, was just a friend. A helpful friend, a supportive presence, a misunderstanding. I didn't argue. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. Mediation was scheduled for the following week, held in a neutral office with gray walls and furniture designed to feel calming, but somehow only made everything feel more sterile. My wife sat across from me, perfectly composed, hair done, neutral makeup, the version of herself she used when she wanted to appear reasonable. Her parents sat behind her, close enough to be seen as a united front. I don't know why they were allowed to be there, but I didn't fight it. She didn't look at me when she spoke. "This divorce is unnecessary," she said calmly. "He walked out instead of working on our marriage. That's the truth." Her lawyer nodded along. "My client feels blindsided. There was no attempt at counseling, no ultimatum. He simply left." I folded my hands on the table. "Is it my turn?" I asked the mediator. She nodded. "Yes," I said. "I'd like to submit documentation." My wife glanced at me for the first time then. Her expression tightened, just slightly. My attorney slid a folder across the table. Thick, tabbed, organized. "What is this?" her lawyer asked. "Evidence," my attorney replied. The mediator opened the folder. Inside were photographs, time-stamped, clear. My wife and Ethan entering a hotel together, exiting hours later, different clothes, different days, different locations. Security stills from a hotel elevator, her reflection visible in the mirrored walls, his arm around her waist. Receipts followed. Hotel bills charged to her card. Weekend stays in a city 3 hours away. Dates that coincided exactly with the work retreat she'd told me about. Then messages, printed transcripts, flirtation turning explicit, plans made, lies coordinated. "Tell him you're with your mom. He won't ask questions. I love when you choose me." The room went quiet. Not awkward quiet, heavy quiet. My wife's face drained of color. Her lawyer flipped pages faster now, eyes narrowing. "Where did you obtain this?" she asked. "I hired a licensed private investigator," I said evenly. "After I was told I was imagining things." My wife finally spoke. "You had me followed?" she snapped. "I had the truth documented," I replied. "There's a difference." Her mother leaned forward, outraged. "This is invasive. This is harassment." The mediator raised a hand. "If the evidence was legally obtained, it's admissible." It was. The PI's affidavit was included. Dates, times, observations, corroboration. There was no wiggle room, no reinterpretation, no innocent explanation. My wife crossed her arms, jaw tight. "This doesn't matter," she said sharply. "You embarrassed me. You humiliated me in front of my family. You checked out emotionally long before any of this happened." Her lawyer seized on that immediately. "Exactly. Emotional abandonment preceded any alleged affair." I met my wife's eyes. "You started seeing him before the family dinner," I said quietly. before I exposed anything, before I left. She didn't deny it. Instead, she exhaled sharply and said, "You pushed me away. You embarrassed me. You made me choose." The words were delivered with irritation, not regret, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. I nodded once. "And you chose." The mediator cleared her throat. "If you resist a settlement," she said carefully, "it would be prudent to adjust expectations regarding fault and settlement." Her parents sat back in their chairs, silent now. My wife stared at the table. For the first time since this started, the story she'd rehearsed didn't work anymore. And I didn't feel triumphant, just finished. The divorce dragged on longer than it needed to. I had moved out 2 days after filing into a small apartment across town. Nothing dramatic, just a clean place with white walls, mismatched furniture, and silence that felt earned. I slept better there. Still tense, but lighter. Like I'd finally put something heavy down, even if I hadn't fully let go of it yet. I heard from my former neighbors that Ethan was spending more time at my former house with my wife. He had partially moved in with her. They try to be discreet, but the neighbors know. Apparently, they spend nights at each other's place regularly. The divorce paperwork, though, never stopped. Every concession I made was met with another demand. I agreed to split the furniture evenly. She wanted the dining set, too. I didn't contest the car. She wanted compensation for emotional distress. I offered to move quickly towards settlement. Her lawyer requested extensions. Every olive branch came back snapped in half. Every attempt at civility was answered with spite. Emails arrived late at night, CCing her parents by mistake, accusations disguised as legal language, suggestions that I was being unreasonable for wanting closure, for wanting it over. Her family backed her completely. They always had. I ran into her mother at the supermarket one Tuesday evening. I was in the cereal aisle, staring at 2 nearly identical boxes, trying to remember which one I actually liked, when I heard my name spoken the way people do when they want an audience. "Well, look who it is!" I turned. She stood there with a cart half full of groceries, lips pressed tight, eyes sharp with the kind of satisfaction people get when they think they've caught you doing something wrong, like existing peacefully. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said. "It's a grocery store. They let anyone in." She ignored that. "You hope you're proud of yourself," she said, loud enough that a man nearby glanced over, then quickly pretended not to listen. "Dragging this out, hurting my daughter." I felt something familiar rise. Anger, yes, but also something steadier beneath it. "I didn't drag anything out. I filed. I asked to settle. Your lawyer keeps rejecting it." She scoffed. "Of course you'd say that." I picked up my cereal, placed it in my basket. "You raised her to believe she's never wrong," I said calmly. "This is just the first time it's cost her something." Her face reddened. "You always thought you were better than us," she snapped. "Too smart, too superior." I met her eyes. "No," I said. "I just stopped accepting being treated like I was less." She had no response to that, just a sharp shake of her head, like I'd confirmed something she'd already decided years ago. As I walked away, I heard her mutter, "Selfish." I didn't turn back. A week later, her father showed up at my building. No warning, just buzzed my apartment like he belonged there. I opened the door and didn't invite him in. "This doesn't have to be this way," he said immediately. "No greeting, no small talk. You're being difficult." "I'm being precise," I said. "There's a difference." He folded his arms. "You embarrassed the family. You humiliated her, and now you want to walk away clean." The audacity was breathtaking. No mention of the way they had always treated me or her daughter's affair. "I want to walk away fairly," I replied. He leaned closer. "You think anyone believes your version of events?" I looked at him for a long moment. "I don't need anyone to believe me," I said. "I have documentation." That stopped him. His jaw tightened. "You could still fix this." "No," I said gently. "You could have fixed this years ago by telling your daughter accountability applies to her too." He left without another word. Even my ex didn't confront me directly anymore. She sent messages through lawyers, through her parents, through mutual friends who awkwardly reached out just to check in before sliding into thinly veiled guilt trips. Once, she texted me directly by mistake, or maybe not. "You didn't have to destroy everything." I stared at the screen, then deleted it without replying. The hardest part wasn't the legal battle. It was realizing how coordinated it all was. The same language, the same talking points, the same insistence that I was the problem. Not the affair, not the lies, not the quiet replacement that had happened right in front of me. They weren't trying to reconcile. They were trying to win. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to be reasonable with people who had never been reasonable with me. By the time the divorce was finalized, I felt less exhausted than I had months earlier. Not because it was easy, but because I had stopped explaining myself to people who had already chosen their story. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like peace. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I heard through mutual friends that Ethan had moved out. A month later, I learned why. He'd met someone younger, quieter, easier. Someone who didn't ask questions. Someone who didn't require defending in public or fighting for in private. The irony didn't make me smile. It just made sense. That's when my phone rang for the first time in months. I didn't answer. Then it rang again the next day, and the day after that. Missed calls stacked up like unopened mail. Then came the texts. "Hey, I know it's been a while. I just want to talk. Please don't ignore me." I didn't reply. Emails followed, longer this time, carefully written, apologetic in tone, vague in substance. I made a mistake. I didn't realize what I had. I was confused. I was hurting. Then the mutual friends started calling. "She's not doing well. She really regrets it. She just wants closure." I thanked them for checking in and changed the subject. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. One afternoon, as I was leaving work, I saw her standing across the street. Not dramatic, no tears, just waiting. When she saw me, she smiled, tentative, hopeful, like we were about to pick up a conversation that had only been paused. I walked past her. "Please," she said quietly, following a few steps behind. I didn't slow down. 2 days later, she showed up at my apartment. I didn't open the door. I stood on the other side, listening as she knocked once, then again. "I know you're in there," she said softly. "I'm not here to fight." I leaned my forehead against the door and closed my eyes. "Go home," I said. "This isn't healthy." "I just want to talk," she insisted. "You owe me that." I almost laughed. I didn't open the door. The messages kept coming, less polished now, more frantic. "I was wrong. I chose wrong. You don't understand how hard it is to be alone." That one sat with me longer than the others, not because it hurt, because it explained everything. Eventually, I agreed to meet her, not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I wanted finality, for both of us. We chose a small cafe halfway between our old house and my apartment, neutral ground, no memories attached. She was already there when I arrived, dressed carefully, familiar perfume, the version of herself she used when she wanted to be taken seriously. She stood when she saw me. "You look good," she said. "So do you," I replied, because it was true and because it didn't matter. We sat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I didn't think he'd leave," she said finally. I stirred my coffee slowly. "That's not why we're here." She nodded quickly. "I know. Everything happened so fast, I lost perspective. You didn't lose it, I said calmly. You traded it. Her eyes filled, but the tears didn't fall. I thought I could come back, she whispered. I thought you'd still be there. I met her gaze. No anger, no bitterness. I was there. You just kept choosing someone else. She reached across the table, stopping just short of my hand. Can we try again? She asked. I'll do it differently this time. I leaned back. No, I said gently. This is the different part. She frowned. What does that mean? It means actions have consequences, not punishments. Consequences. You made choices assuming I'd absorb them. I won't anymore. She shook her head. People make mistakes. Yes, and people live with them. Her shoulders slumped. The arrogance that once protected her was gone, replaced with something smaller, lonelier. So that's it? She asked. That's it, I said. I stood, placed some cash on the table, and paused. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it won't be with me. I walked out without looking back. Some endings don't need drama. They just need honesty delivered too late to change anything. By the time she realized what she'd thrown away, I wasn't angry anymore. I was finished. Thanks for listening to our story. It's wonderful to have you here. Please like and subscribe to have more content come your way, and do check out the other stories from our channel.